the smallest tier of swing states that we have had, really only 7 and a very small set of
こんにち
electoral
は、こん
votes
ばん
that
は、こん
are
ばんは。
seem to be under
ライブ
competition
放
by
送
both
を
candidates this time. But it's
や
always
ろ
the
うと思っ
case that
て
the
ますけ
candidates
ど、
focus on the few states that could
で
put
きて
them
ま
over
す
the
でしょう
top.
か。
And off to the left-hand side of your screen there, you can see
あ、
the podium is set
も
up
しも
as we
し、
expect to hear
もしも
from
し、
Georgia officials
もしも
here
し。
in just a bit, providing an update on the numbers there, any sort of issues that have popped up, and that is, of
こん
course,
ばん
one of
は。
those 7 swing states that we're watching
あ、
very
こんばんは。
closely there in
どな
Georgia.
たか
Now, when we look at some
And
of the
Georgia,
見
I'm
てい
sorry,
た
go
だいてま
ahead.
すかね。
I was going to say, and Georgia is one of the places that does and has counted pretty fast, so it should be one of our early indications on the night of how things are going.
はい、こんばんは。
Yeah, that's
OL
good
で
because a lot
す。
of people will
改
be
めまし
watching
て、
Georgia again, along with those other swing states
ライ
here.
ブ、
I
ア
did
メ
want
リ
to
カ
ask
大
you a
統領
little
選
bit
の
more
ライ
about
ブ
the
放送
Electoral
を
College
発信
overall
してい
because,
こうと思います。
again, we get so
これ
many
今ね、
questions about it, and we see those national
ライ
polls
ブ
that
ナ
show
ウ
the
っていう
different percentages
FOX
for
の
Kamala Harris,
ライブ
Donald
サイ
Trump. Do those
ト
account
の
for the
エレクショ
Electoral
ン
College and how they
24カ
vote
バレッジライブ
versus, you know, just the popular
と
vote
いうところで
total
す。
in general?
見て、
We
ユー
get
ジ、
state and
ユージ
national
さん、ユージ
polls.
星野さん、見え
We
てま
can
す
look
か？
at
ありが
that.
とうございま
Obviously, they
す。
don't always go in the same direction. In
音声どうでしょう？
2000
ちょっと
and in
うるさいですか？
2016, they went in different
大丈夫でしょう
directions.
か？まあ、
But
私
they
と
both
一
have the
緒に見ていき
same
ましょう。
set of
今、日本
problems,
時
which
間
is
の
just that really
23
only
時
1 in 100 people is
07
willing
分、
to talk to
夜
us
中、
about
もう
politics,
少しで
and
ね、
they
あと
may
1
not
時
be
間で
representative of
11
those
月6
people
日に
who
日本
are
はなろうとしてま
unwilling to
す。
talk.
ア
Overall,
メリ
the
カ時間ちょ
national
っと
polls are
今言い
usually
ましょう
off by
か。
about 3 to 4 percentage points, and the state polls are usually off by 4 to 5
ユージさん OK
percentage
です
points.
か？
So
今、
even a typical error
ア
in the
メリカね、
polls
ニュ
is
ーヨー
enough
ク朝
to
の9
move
時で
this
す。
into
ニューヨーク朝の9
clearly
時。
one camp or the other.
シカゴは朝の8
Another
時。
question related to
サ
the
ンフランシスコ
Electoral
朝の6
College.
時と
I did want to ask
いう
this
ことで
because
す。
this is one that we get
という
quite
こ
a
と
bit.
は、
Can the Electoral
旅す
College
る
vote
オル
for
ガン、
a different candidate
ハ
than the
スキー
state
ヒロミ
selects?
さん、
Has that ever happened before? Is it
最近発
is
見
it
していただき
possible?
まし
Is
た。あり
it
がとうございます。
legal?
ありがとうございます。ラ
There
ニープさ
were
ん、こんばんは。
attempts to have
いつもありがとうござい
state
ます。
legislatures
3回目のね、
enact
今日全
bills
部来
that
てい
would
ただき
send
ましたよ
different
ね。
slates of electors, like in
夕
2000, the
方
Florida
と夜と
legislature
今、
considered
ちょっ
one.
と休んでね、
The
ちょっと
federal
仮眠したんですよ、
government
1時間ぐ
through
ら
a
い。
change, a post-Trump
で、起き
change,
て、
has tried to make it
もう
harder for
ね、
states to do that,
寝れない
especially
状態
after
で
the
す。
election. But of course, we do have some states that send
ちょ
electoral votes
今朝の9時
on
で
the
しょ？今日っ
basis
て
of
株やってるん
congressional
ですよね、ア
district
メリカ。
winners. So
株
before
式
the
市場。
election, it's
私ね、
certainly
もうアメリカ
possible
の
for
株
states
さえもう
to
見てないんですよ。
change how they would
元証
send
券マンで
electoral
すけど、
votes.
ニューヨーク始まってます
And
よ
a
ね。も
discussion a little bit
う。
about
休みな
early
んですか？
voting. Is there one party that is more likely to turn
ニュー
out
ヨ
for
ークだ。
early voting than another? We've seen millions
投
of
票日っ
people
て休
cast
みな
their
んですか？
ballots. I believe it's
ちょ
one
っと待ってくだ
third
さいね。
of American
声
voters
静かにしてく
voted
ださいっ
early.
ていう
So
ね、
is there a
チャッ
party
トメッ
that
セー
turns
ジ
out
が
more than the other,
隣の
or
部
is
屋
it
から
kind
来
of
ました。
split down the middle?
ちょっ
In
と待ってね、これ、
2020, there was a pronounced pattern
私
where
の声聞
Democrats
こえ
were
る？
much
小
more
声で
likely
話してる
to
んです
turn
けど
out
ね。
early. They were more worried about the pandemic.
polls
The
open in
signals
all
coming from
7
their
states.
party were much more positive about especially mail-in voting. That has changed to some degree in this election. I still expect nationwide there
今
to
週結
be
構いいこと
more
言っ
early
て
votes
た
coming from Democrats.
んですけ
But
ど、
there
ちょ
are
っと
some
消音
states
させ
like
てもらっ
Nevada where it
て、
appears that Republicans have
一応消音でね、私の声。ちゃんと聞こえてますか？皆さん、ありがとうございます。今日もご覧いただき。ちょっとね、振り返っていこうと思うんですよ。これね、ジュニアの、あれ、ジュニアちょっとどこでしたかね？さっき1時間。すごいですよ、ジュニアね。これ私見てたんですよ。3時間前に、投稿して、ちょうどあれ、最後、私夕方出したライブでは、グランラピッツ、ミシガンで、アメリカ時間深夜2時までやってたんですよね。トランプのラリー。で、これが、ちょっとやばいです。音楽をつけてたら、いつももう著作権侵害で収益化できなくなるんで。で、これ、ちょうどね、もう深夜1時、2時前の映像なんですよね。アメリカ時間の。で、この後、3時間かけてフロリダにトランプ一家はね、帰ってるんですよ。この通りで。フロリダに朝の5時35分に到着と。 置いてすぐ、その時にね、これをしてたんですよ。で、ここ書いてる通りね。で、この日、4つ、ラリーをやってるんですよ。で、78歳。If that man at 78 can do 4 rallies and pull an all-nighter for America、ね、アメリカのために徹夜すると4つのラリーをして徹夜できる78歳の男。We can all get out and vote and stay in line till it's done と。わかります？もう今日起きて、投票に行って、長い列並んで終わるまでね。これはあなたにかかっていると。アメリカ。っていうね、これ説得力ありません？私もその時の同時配信で言いましたけど、78歳の男、私の母、先月亡くなった母、75歳、去年75歳、その比較するとね、もう体力全然違います。健康も全然違います。78に見えません。78歳の老人がね、1日4回、しかも週違うんですよ。週違う。週で4回ラリーして、それから徹夜して朝の5時にフロリダの自宅に帰ってきたと。まあ今寝てると思いますけど、ぐっすり。この男、アメリカのためにこんなこと、ここまでする78歳の老人に我々が最低限できることは、起き上がってね、投票行ってラインに並ぶということです。共和党の皆さん、アメリカの皆さん、頑張ってください。私だったら間違いなく言ってますけどね。日本の総選挙行きませんでした、私。日本の総選挙、私、危険です。今回危険です。うちのね、県知事選も同時にやってたんですけど、県知事選の、県知事ね、私の大学の先輩なんですよ。別に個人的に知ってるわけじゃないんですけど、まあ、ボンボンなんですけどね。ボンボン、地元のめちゃくちゃ家柄のいいとこのね、地元の百貨店のね、老舗百貨店。今、百貨店だけでもいろんなコングロマリット、地元企業。そこの御曹司が知事なんですよ。再選しま、4戦目、4戦しました。4戦しました。そういう、もうね、日本の、まあ、これはうちの地元の県知事選でしたけど、とか、総裁選行きませんでした。衆議院選挙ね。だけどトランプだったら行ってます、もちろん。もちろん。ということで、アメリカ国民の誠意を信じてトランプ勝利を祈ってます。祈り。私これね、今回やる直前に、この今再開3回目のライブする直前にね、写経してたんですよ、写経。私今、もう日課で、母が亡くなって、ちょうどね、もう1ヶ月経つ。まだ四十九日終わってないんですよ。1ヶ月経つ。状況で1ヶ月、もう毎日写経をしている。今日ね、そこに、写経をすると、般若心経写経をすると、最後ね、右ためって書いて、右ため、誰々のためにという文言、ドナルド・ J・ トランプと書こうとしたんですけど、結構ね、写経するの時間かかるの、40分かかるんですよ、30、40分。で、それはちょっとやめました。もう一回、母用に書き直さないといけないんで、だけど、その時よぎりました。ここ、ドナルド・ J・ トランプにしようかなと。しかし、もう私、その前の動画でも言ってますけど、もう決まってるんですよ。当確出してますから、祈る必要もないなと思い直してね、いました。ということで、これね、ドン・ジュニアの X です。これ23日間前、今ピンされてるこれね、もう今、それ言うまでもないですけど、エナジー、インフレーションの企画です。トランプ時代 0.7%。だからインフレなんかなかったんですよ、ほぼ。エネルギー 0.7%。マイナスですから。ハリス・バイデン 34%。その内訳、ガス、エレクトリシティ、 フューエル、オイル、ナチュラルガス、どれも3割以上、ナチュラルガスは24% ですけどね。トランスポーテーション、交通費もね、31%。あとは車も 17.9%、18%。パブリックトランスポーテーションだけでも 17%。トランプ自体マイナス 14% ですよ。カーインシュアランス。これが結構大きいですね。インシュアランス 56%。すごいですよね。56% 上がってるって。エアラインフェアーズ。航空運賃 24%。航空運賃とかはね、もうそもそもガス代が上がってるんで、エアラインたちもね、航空会社も大変だと思います。転嫁。ホテルもなんと 42%。トランプ時代 15% です。よく言われてるエッグスね、卵って70%。日本も卵高くなってますよね。マーガリン。マーガリンも石油製品みたいなもんです。54%。トランプ時代見てこれ。もう、やっぱ4年前にね、他何ですか、ブレックファストシリアルも 22%、ドライドビーンズ、ピーズ、あとレンテル、豆類ね、全部上がってます。22%。フローズンベジタブルズも 27%。小麦も 35.8%。ピーナッツバターも 41%。あとこれなんですよね。K-12 スクール、学校、子供の子が7割上がってるんですよ。これシングルマザーとかかわいそうですよね。まあ普通の子供のいる家庭。69% 上がってどういうことですかと。ペットフードも 23%。アパレル服とかもね。トランプ時代全部ほぼマイナスのもいっぱいありますよね。これがね、ハリス、バイデン、クソ政権、歴史上最低の政権。戦争2つ、現在なお進行形でやってるクソ政権。終わらせないといけません。それを支持してる有権者、アホです、本当に。バカでしょ。なおかつ、これで、バイデン、ハリスに投票するって、こいつらもう、アホか、もう大金持ちのセレブリティかなんですよね。洗脳されてるアホどもか。もう常識、コモンセンスがある一般中産階級、普通の人たちは、もうトランプ一択でしょ。これ見て。実績ありますからね、トランプ。ということで、まあ、これね、ドンの、ジュニアのね、ツイートです。で、ちょっと見ていこうと思うのは、このジョー・ローガンのね、今日、イーロン・マスクが、ジョー・ローガンに出てるんですよね。ちょっとお茶飲みながらすみません。で、イーロン・マスクも自分の X ポストで、これ結構アピールしてましたんで、最後の最後ね、これを持ってきました。で、ジョー・ローガンもエンドースメント支持、最終日に、トランプへの支持をね、発表しました。その前の、2日前にこの、フェターマンが出てるでしょ、ジョン・フェターマン。これペンシルバニアの上院議員なんですよ。だからね、これ、カマラ・ハリスの代理として出たんでしょうね。代理人とカマラ・ハリスの代理。カマラ・ハリス3時間ぶつ続けてできませんから。フェタマンが出て、で、結局最後まで待ったけど、ハリスは出なかったと。逃げたということでね、最終日にイーロン・マスクが出て、正式にジョー・ローガンがトランプ支持を打ち出したという流れなんですよね。その前には JD バンスも出てます。そして JD バンス全部見ました。トランプももちろん全部見ました。フェタマン見てません。まだイーロン・マスクもまだ見てません。という状況でね、トランプね、10日で4500ビューです。4500万。100万、4500万ビュー。今まで史上最高、モーストポピュラーがね、ちょっとお待ちくださいね。ポピュラー順に並び替えるところ、あれポピュラー順、6000万。どうやって並び替えるんですかね。ここ、ポピュラー。一番5年間で 6000、6000万人というのは62ミリオンがあるんですよ。2番にいきなりトランプ、10日で、10日で、10日で2番に来ました。スノーデン抜きました。スノーデン、3800万、38ミリオン。10日でね、いきなりトランプ第2位につけました。5年かかって6000万、62ミリオンも抜くでしょ余裕で。トランプ1番。で、まあこれが、世界一のジョー・ローガン、ポッドキャストのね、世界一、全世界90何カ国で一番の人気ポッドキャストのジョー・ローガンの中のトランプの立ち位置なんですよ。結構面白いでしょ。もう一回言います。ちょっと頭入れましょう。6200万が5年間でトップ。これ UFO のネタなんですよ。で、スノーデンが同じくね、3800万で、多かったですね。で、今4500万トランプが2番につけたという。で、その前はね、イーロン・マスクが4年前のイーロン・マスクが3400万だったんですよ。3400万。で、今回、ホーム行くと、イーロン・マスクまでこれ今16時間前で690万ですよね。600万、約700万ビュー。フェタマ 1.6 ミリオンなんですよ。ダメでしょ。大したことないですよね。JD バンスは1.14 ミリオンです。4日間でそこそこ来てます。トランプ45ですからね。で、これで大体ね、感覚、わかるんじゃないかなと、人気度。まあ、要するに、フェータマン程度じゃ、死がにもかからないと。相手にならないと。で、イーロン・マスクがトランプ抜くかどうかですよね。いい勝負。さすがイーロン・マスクといえどもトランプは抜けないんじゃないですか。この辺のね、注目度を見てます。私は。まだイーロン・マスク何言ったかわかんないんですけどね。これも今日時間あったら見ていこうと思います。ナリンプさん、今、チャットコメント。ニューズウィークがトランプ集会で出場した MSNBC の記者が興奮してトランプの集会こんな空席がなかったと実況しているのを流して異変だと騒いでいます。尾形もこういうのに影響され、そうなんですか。ニューズウィークがトランプ集会で、トランプのどこの集会でなんでしょう？ MSNBC が空席なんかあったんですか？ちょっとそういう話あったら聞いてみたいですよね、本当に。ちなみに、だいぶ後ろの空席を騒いでいるだけであったんですが、そこから前はずっと一人なんでうーんもう、ニャリップさん、やりそうですよね。やりそう。なことなんですよ。だって、この前のね、この、この前の私何度も話題にしてますけど、マジソンスクエアガーデンでのね、あれも、そのコメディアンなんか見てないっていうことでしょ。他どんなに有名人がいっぱい出てきて、良い記録が出てきて、全然前座の前座の前座ぐらいの、私も見てもなかったですよ。昨日、そんな話あったのって。後で話題になって、だからそこを切り取って、えこんなにね、プエルトリコ人を、プエルトリコという国をゴミだって言ったって、それコメディーですか、ジョークですからっていう話でしょ。長い間、長い、前座の前座の前座ぐらいの、ラリーってもう半日やってるでしょ、半日。8時間やってるラリーの中のトランプの最後、メインの人たちは最後の2時間ぐらいじゃないですか。その前座の話の不適切発言。それもね、コメディですよ。と同じですよね、これ。MSNBC の記者。空席があるって後ろの方をやってね。だから、こう言って、ニュースを作っていきます。加工していきます。全部。直近の話でもそうでしょ。トランプがリズ・チェイニーを処刑してしまえって言ったっていうような。そんなこと言ってないじゃない。そういう文脈じゃなかったでしょと。だけど、CNN も、CNN がやると次右に習えでね、ABC も MSNBC も全部やって、右習えて、ちょっと作っていくんですよ。でね、ほんとね、これね、ただ愚痴っていうだけじゃなくて、こうやって嘘は作られてニュースはね、こうやってプロパガンダしていくって、私はスターリン時代なんか当然皆さん知らないでしょ。私も知らません。同時代として。スターリン時代は知らないのは当然だとしてもね、フルシチョフ時代も知りません。ブレジネフ時代も知りません。ソビエトは多分こういうことをやってたんですよ。ソビエトのメディアがやってたこと、当時のね、政府系のイズベニエチアとかいろいろ あるんですけど、新聞とかテレビとかね、をやってるのが今のバイデン・ハリス政権なんですよね。で、渦中にいて同時代にいたらそれは気づかないんですよ、多くの人は。だけど、あと、歴史として振り返ると、なんていう時代だった。我々もそうですよね。第二次世界大戦の当時は、みんな、意見だったわけでしょ。大本営発表を信用してました。みんな軍国協力下で。体制がそうなってたら、疑うこともできません。で、時代が変われば後で、クレイジーな時代だったなと、異常だったなっていうのがわかるんですよね。同時代としてわかるないとわかるべきですよね。さすがに、アメリカもウェイクアップですよ、今日。審判が下ります。私もね、今日ちょっと、そういう感じで、今の時間帯はね、私のとこ来てくれる方は意識の高い人ばかりだと思います。ちょっとね、1000人ぐらいが見てくれてるとき変なやついっぱい来てね、いろいろいるんで、私もよくこのチャットコメントくれてる人と喧嘩ばっかりしてるんですよ。に罵声を浴びせて。チャットにコメント、ライブでチャットコメントしている方と怒鳴り合いしてるって、のが私のスタイルで。今は、今夜はそんな感じは、この時間帯はね、いいと思うんで、じっくりと、教養レベルの高い皆さんと、聞いていただいている皆さんと、レベルの高い皆さんとでね、話していこうと分析していこうと思います。で、ちょっと待ってください。これ私のナイフ。イーロン・マスクはいいんですけど、このちょっと、フォックスのライブでも流して聞いておきましょうか。さっき聞いてたやつ。
You want to head to a quick break, but we'll be right back
これ
with more live
ど
coverage
こ
here
の
on
話でしょう。
Live Now from Fox.
あら、宣伝になりました。ライブフォックス。せっかくで、他のなんかいいのやってますかね。NBC 見てみようか。CNN 見てみます。CNN。私 CNN とかをね、フェイクニュースメディアバカにしてて、その CNN 見るのは尺に触りますが、CNN 見てみますか。
2016, all still around the margins if the margins are relatively wide enough, and margins can be fluid. Republicans are nevertheless widely expected to take both these states, Florida and Texas,
本当ですか。
unless
Shocking poll in
there are
deep
factors that come into
red
play on
state.
voters'
まだ言
minds
ってます。
not
アイオワの
seen
やつ。
or
これね、い
foreseen
つのニュースなん
by
です
the
か、ライブ。
pollsters. But there is one state, Iowa, that is where a survey suggests that Harris now leads Trump by 3 percentage points. It would be cataclysmic
よくそんなことやってますよね、当
Republicans
日。
to lose Iowa and for Democrats to
これ
take
ね、
the state, considered as deep red a state as
はい
any
今我々が
politically
目
can
撃して
get.
いるのは、
A poll
ソ
in
ビエト
Iowa
の
earlier
ニ
in
ュースメ
September
ディア
had
です。
a 4-point
国民を
lead
洗脳しよ
for
うとしている。
Trump over Harris. A poll earlier in June
なわ
had
けねえ
Trump
だろという
ahead
こと
by
ですよ
18
ね。
points.
はい、次行きましょう。
Candidate
やっ
from
ぱ
the
CNN
Democrats
はフェイクニュー
then
スで
of
した。
course was Joe
AB
Biden.
ニュース見てみましょうか、ABC。
慶応義塾大学病院眼科部が開発したこの老眼鏡は本当に驚きです。
なんで、
私の父は5年
スキップ、
スマートフォンや
We're not at the right station. And you didn't wake me up.
なんか
Oh, you're having such a good nap.
ABC。宣伝ですか。
I didn't have the heart to wake you up.
Kieran Culkin is a force of nature.
Has he always been like this?
I love him and I hate him
What the?
and I want to be him.
It's
さあ、
a
フェイクニュースの
masterpiece of a
ABC。
movie.
Thank you so
まあ、
much,
朝
man.
一
Real Pan, written and directed by Jesse
朝一
Eisenberg.
なんでね、
Rated
録
R.
画まだ。出ました。出ました。ホワイトハウス。
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, you're looking at the White House on this election day, Tuesday. The final votes in this historic election are being cast today. More than 82 million voters already cast their ballots early.
82ミリオンですね。8200万人も期日まで投票してるみたいです。すごいですよね。もうほとんどないじゃないですか。
She'll be watching the results roll in tonight at her alma mater, Howard University in Washington, while Trump is set to watch at the Palm Beach Convention Center in his home state of Florida. ABC's Alex Brachet joins me now from the White House, along with ABC's Jay O'Brien in West Palm Beach for more. Good to see you both. So, Alex, polling ahead of this year's election suggests Democrats' longtime advantage with Latino voters is shrinking. How critical is that in the swing states, and how are the campaigns trying to get the vote out in these final hours?
shrinking にしますよ。
that demographic is largely critical to Democrats' hopes for re-election in this cycle. I mean, I think it's important to realize that Latinos don't vote as a monolith, so there's a smattering of issues that will really appeal to them. But in these waning days of this election campaign, certainly there has been a lot of momentum post that Trump rally at MSG, right? Specifically with Puerto Ricans, but I mean, I think you'll see a smattering of Latinos
すみません。
that have come out
これどうやって
critical
変えるんですか、日本
of that comedian's remarks, and that's something that the Harris campaign has really tried to
英語にしか
galvanize
変わらないんですけど、前
around
日本語に変わってたん
and
ですけど
highlight.
ね
And。so, I mean, you saw
こ
that
こか。
last
サブ
night
タイトル、イングリッ
as
シュじゃな
the
く
vice
て。
president rallied in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh with folks like Mark Anthony and also bringing out J-Lo and getting the Bad Bunny endorsement. All that's been tailored specifically to get at this voter bloc at a different age points, trying to woo them and bring them under the tent, kind of akin to how she's done with some of those moderate votes, voters who might not be as bullish on her policies, but they don't like the harsh political rhetoric and think that she's a better alternative than the former president.
Jay, Trump has bragged in the past about being the most pro-Israel president in history. He's doubled down on support for Israel in the last few weeks, too. Meanwhile, Harris has been trying to walk this kind of fine line between showing sympathy for Palestinians, saying the war needs to end, but also reiterating support for Israel. How much could this issue impact this election, especially considering the number of Arab and Muslim voters in battleground Michigan and the number of Jewish voters in Muslim Pennsylvania?
Well, taking Michigan first, that is an issue that Democrats have had really since the primaries, and there was that uncommitted movement amongst the primaries with Democrats and other progressives casting this kind of vote as a protest vote against the Biden administration. And so we've seen the Harris campaign try to reach out to Arab American voters in every single state, but Michigan specifically. It's been unclear how successful it's been. The Harris campaign believes they have made meaningful outreach, brought some of those progressives back into the Democratic
サクセスフルじゃないでしょ。最後まで、攻撃、ボーイングしてましたから。
The Arab American community as well, try to pick up votes there and try to run up the numbers in a state like Michigan with that constituency. When you talk about Jewish voters as well, we've seen the Trump campaign try to make inroads there and try to point out to what they say is what the Trump campaign says is a mishandling of the war in Gaza by the Biden administration and try to drive a wedge between Kamala Harris and Jewish voters. Really across the map, we haven't seen much in the polling demonstrate that either has really moved, although there have been some polls demonstrating that Donald Trump has picked up support amongst Arab Americans. The reality is we're just going to see how it washes out tonight, Diane, but it factors into this broader campaign strategy of both the Harris and the Trump campaigns trying to hit very different core demographics and try to run up the numbers there. Another demographic, the Trump campaign, making serious attempts to make inroads with young white men, try to drive them out to the polls as well, those so-called low propensity voters.
Alex, the Harris campaign has made abortion and reproductive rights a centerpiece of their platform.
結構面白いですね。ペンシルバニアとミシガンのね、このガザをめぐる。
Abortion rights are also on the ballot in 10 states. So how could that impact voter turnout?
Well, I mean, abortion rights have been the boon to this campaign. I mean, when we talk about a swell of support, when we look at how this race has been split amongst the gender divide, abortion rights are largely why the president is doing so much better with women than Trump is right now. And so you saw
でもこいつは嘘を言って国民を騙そうとするもう聞いてられません。腹立ってきて、こういうフェイクニュース聞いてられません。フォックスに戻りましょう。
are more likely to vote for them, and then the task has been to get their attention, find out how you reach them. Is it by cell phones? Is it by social media? And that's really what they've been focusing, and which social media, I should say, too. So that's what the focus has been for the last 2 to 3 weeks. And the fact that we see both explicit appeals by both Trump and by Harris, using Joe Rogan, trying to use Taylor Swift, are indications about how they're trying to reach these different populations.
My last question for you here, what might prevent the youth from turning out to vote? Why might younger people choose to just not go to the ballot box?
Well, first off, they might not be registered to vote. They might not like the two candidates and might opt to go somewhere else. Believe it or not, there's a lot of young people who just don't see the importance or value of voting in an election. I teach American political science, and I talk till I'm blue in the face sometimes and say voting does matter. And so I think there's a whole bunch of different reasons that are sort of put together in terms of why the youth vote doesn't show up to vote all the time. But this is not just current youth. I mean, take us back a generation, take us back to the baby boomers.
まあそうですね。
Voter turnout for younger people always lags by about 20 points compared to those who are older.
All right. David Schultz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help kind of break it all down. Anything else you want to add about this before I let you go?
I guess what I would say at this point is look tonight for the election returns. When they start to come in, are they coming in heavily from college towns or not? And if they are coming in from college towns, that's probably a good sign for Harris. If they're not coming in from college towns, that's probably a good sign for Trump. But I focus on the college towns because that's going to be the base, especially for Harris, that she's looking for.
All right. Thank you again for being here with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I do want to take you out to another live camera that we do have just coming in. This is over in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. Again, we have these cameras just about everywhere, especially in key states. Do want to pop this up once again. We showed you a bit earlier, but the line getting longer and longer over in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. That is one of 7 swing states that are going to be watched very closely as the results do start to come in. Now, I do want to remind you, 6 p.m. Eastern time, that is when our primetime coverage does resume. We'll make sure to bring you all of those results as they do come into our newsroom. We got it all for you right here. Got you covered on Live Now from Fox. Let's head to a quick break now at 9:36 on the East Coast and 6:36 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and you're watching Live Now from Fox.
ちょっと待ってください。ニューヨークの6時っていうことは日本の何時ですか？結果は。コピーライバーク。どっかの印象が。NBC 見ましょうか、NBC ライブ。
ゆうちゃんの実は。
へえ、給与チェックかいな。
生活費の支払いがあんなに人間って大変ですね。
もっとアプリで支払いや。
損得チェックも便利な暮らしが広がっています。ゆうちょ銀行。
Attention, it's the makeup of Congress because that could dictate whether or not we get the extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's a very big deal, especially for corporations and their corporate tax rate, especially for individuals paying income taxes. But things like tariffs is something that if Trump wanted to be elected, he could enforce himself. But it's Congress and the makeup of Congress that really dictates the way policy will go, and that has the biggest impact on us as spenders, as consumers in the U.S. economy.
We know how important the economy is to voters in this election, consistently a top issue. Caleb, thank you so much. We'll see you in a little bit. Well, our special Election Day coverage continues after the break. Don't go anywhere. We have more live coverage all throughout the...
クローズ曲数なんで変わらないんでしょう。ライブの時は日本語できないんですかね、多分。できないみたいですね。ホックスに戻りましょうか。まだ全然です。
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 9:39 on the East Coast and 6:39 on the West Coast. Do want to pop up this live image once again. This is coming in out of Georgia. As you can see, the state seal right there and the flag. The podium is set up here for Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who has been giving daily updates on the state of elections in the state. He's been providing early voting numbers as well as word on any technical issues they've had, anything reported, so we expect that same situation today. Now, the podium has been set up for a while, but he has been holding his briefings sometime around 10 a.m. Eastern time. So we can assume it's going to be in that direction as far as the time goes, but we'll make sure to bring it to you as it does get underway. All right, also do want to head over and check in with our Fox 5 Atlanta team right now for a look at some of their coverage as we are checking in with our different affiliates.
They've been focused on the presidential race, but there are some very critical elections in Congress that are really going to shape the future.
Important to note that. So we have some help to break it all down for you. Lena DeFlorius is here in the newsroom with us for the balance of power in Congress. So take it away, Lena.
All right, we're going to take a look at the House of Representatives. This is the lower chamber of Congress, much bigger than the Senate, which only has 100 seats. But the House of Representatives has 435 seats, and 38 of them represent Texas. Now, they don't represent the entire state of Texas. They represent their own congressional district. And these numbers are based on population. So what you're seeing now is a result of the 2020 census. In fact, that is when Texas gained 2 more seats in the House of Representatives. These are 2-year terms. So if it's in a presidential election, a midterm election, you will be voting for your representatives. And all 435 of these are on the ballot each and every time. Now, they're testing the system, so these numbers are a little off. Let me walk you through it. Of the 435 seats, 218 are needed for control. Right now, Republicans have that. They're walking in with 220 seats versus Democrats with 212 and 3 open seats right now, including 1 here locally. So we'll take a look at the races. There are 38 congressional districts across the state of Texas. 11 of them are right here in Southeast Texas. You have multiple districts. We have District 2, District 7, District 29, for instance. District 18 is the one getting all the headlines because it's the first time in 30 years that Sheila Jackson Lee hasn't been on the ballot. When she passed away in July, she left her seat open for this term, and now you have to fill next term as well. So while under normal circumstances, every American would vote for 1 representative, if you're waking up in congressional district, you are voting for 2. This race will be for the next full term, 2025 through 2027, but you also have to vote an expired term that goes from now until January 3rd, where you have her daughter, Erica Lee Carter, and 2 Republicans running as well, Maria Dunn and Kevin Durrell. So this is really going to play into the big picture when it comes to the Electoral College, because now that we have 38 representatives, with 40 electoral votes in the Electoral College, so there is a potential, ladies, that we could have both the Senate and the House of Representatives flip-flop control where the other party takes it. If that happens in the same election, it'll be the first time we've seen that in more than 230 years.
NFT 持ってるんですよ、トランプの。トランプデジタルカード持ってるんですよ、私。100ドルで買ったのが今いくらなのか興味あるんですけどよくわからないんです。もし詳しい方いたら教えてください。どなたかいますか、トランプの NFT 持ってる人。一番最初のやつです。一番最初のやつ買ったんですよ。ヒーターさんもニャリンプーさんもスパチャ以前ありがとう。もう今日は本番はいいですので、今日一応3回ごと。さっきさん本当ありがとうございます。本当助かるんですよ。助かるというか、私のできてませんから、マネタイズ。ということでね、会員400いくらって言いました？ 420 くらい。いやこっちもね、楽しみです。会員も取るでしょう。間違いなく。今度どこ見ましょうかね。ライブのところ。これはね、あれ、よくわかった。ライブで。これ何なんですか？
To pay for your own meal, you're paying for somebody else's meal, and the Democrat Party's telling you that you're not struggling to pay for your children's education, their clothing, right, your electricity bill, whatever it may be. They're gaslighting.
These polls, do you believe it is going to be that close?
Yeah, I really do. There's been a tremendous amount of consistency around the polls, and what we typically are looking at as we evaluate these are the averages of polls. We're looking at them nationally, and then we're looking at them in the battleground states. And in both of those lenses, they're remarkably close. They're numerically different, but statistically all within the margin of error, meaning they're tied. And I do actually think this is reflective of the realities on the ground.
I want to break this down. You say every single poll is within the margin of error, numerically different, statistically meaningless. But there are are indicators, you say, sticking out from past years. What are those indicators?
Yeah, so especially when things are this close, we have to start looking at other patterns because we're human beings. We strive for certainty in some way or another. There's a degree of degrading uncertainty as we look in that, but they're meaningful because they're pronounced. One is the Harris campaign is underperforming amongst certain key demographics. One that's gotten a lot of media attention, and deservedly so, is among black men. The other, which is pronounced, is among Latinos. I'm not saying that Trump is poised to win a majority of Latinos or black men or other key
だから
demographics.
ハリスは黒人男性とラティーノ全体で悪いとシュリンキングしてるわけでしょ、バイデンと比べて。で、バイデンギリギリだったんですから、もうこの2つだけ取って負けでしょ、ハリス。マージンオブエラーってずっとの範囲なんて言ってるんです。これもう毎回そうなんですよ、毎回。2020も2016も。だからはっきり言ってポール、全然意味ないですから。
I've been reading some articles here. Former President Obama's past campaign manager, Jim Messina, said in an interview on MSNBC, quote, early vote numbers are a little scary. When you look at some of the early vote numbers, it has led a lot of your friends and my friends to call me panicking. And an RNC data consultant wrote, Democrats are spinning themselves and reporters by claiming that their voters will turn out on Election Day when polls show otherwise. And most importantly, that's asking Democrat voters to do something they have absolutely no history of doing. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it could cut both ways, right? I mean, Republicans were asking Republicans to do something they had no history of doing, but they've done it. On the other hand, all of the requests from both sides, Republicans and Democratic operatives, have been vote early. The challenge here is Democrats aren't voting in a way that's surpassing Republicans as they have in the past. I do think that's going to be a real challenge. I mean, at the end of the day, it's never happened before, so we don't know what it's going to look like until the day is done. So.
We also don't know if Republicans going to actually vote Republican, or, as you mentioned, a Democrat vote for a Democratic candidate. An election memo Trump's camp sent out last night states that NBC's latest poll showed Election Day voters favor Trump by 16 points. And then a Democratic analyst from Target Smart reported universally lower urban and female ballots cast in all battleground states so far. I want you to take a look at these numbers, Justin, because I thought this was kind of alarming. So in Arizona, urban turnout is down 385,285 votes compared to this point in 2020 female vote. The female vote there is down 170,000. You can see Georgia right there. The urban vote is down 156,000. The female vote down nearly 47,000. Michigan, I mean, these are some startling numbers when you look at these. The urban vote there down more than 321,000. The female vote down almost 205,000. Again, this is compared to this time during the polling in 2020. What does this tell you?
You're absolutely right. These are massive differences. And in very tight races, elections are won by tens of thousands of ballots. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands. And as we both know, urban environments tend to be much more centralized for Democratic votes versus suburban and rural environments. That's a real challenge for the Democratic ticket. And the other challenge is this disparity in terms of the female vote. Last cycle, it was an off cycle, the abortion rights movement really scored tremendous wins because of a female turnout. That was amazing on behalf of blue efforts. I don't see this coming out in terms of female voters, in terms of urban voters, and in terms of
アボーションがそんなに問題になってないんだったら、これまた共和党の優位ですよね。
So again, I have to ask you, because when you look at those numbers and you look at early voter turnout and how many are not voting compared to the early votes from 2020, how are the polls showing that it's so close? Is it because pollsters are asking people who might not go vote?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's very, very difficult to model actual turnout, especially in some states. The degree of data that we have varies all over the place. That's one of the challenges. But the core component here is with all these different changes, we still think
コロナにしろコロナで何しろアーリーボートが減ってるということは、 まあ、多くはコロナですよね、完全に。投票に行かないという選択肢も結構増えるという可能性があるということですよね。当日の投票数自体は減るかもわかんないですね。総数は。なんて言いました今。トランプが、ハリスがポピュラーボール取ってトランプがエレクトルカルカレッジ取るって言ったんですかね。ちょっと聞いてもらわなかった。何やってんですか NYT。ストライクするって。まあいいです。次はどこ見ましょうか。ホーブス、これ。ライブどこをやってるんですか。ちょっと、ライブどうやって探すんですかね。ライブ。ワールドニュース、ポリティクスニュース。こういう。ちょっと一つ戻りましょうか。
and for using the presidency to achieve, quote, retribution against
political
enemies, who's talked about using the National Guard, even the military, against his political rivals, and people like Paul Pelosi, who just happen to be related to his political rivals, who's talking about camps for migrants, which are reminiscent of the Japanese internment camps that developed during World War II, a wartime exigency. So this is a very different situation. This is not, taxes go up, taxes go down.
Right.
Maybe stipulate. I don't like Kamala Harris's Joe Biden's immigration policy, which Kamala Harris supported too much. I've got this view or that view on these other issues. This is about first principles. Do we believe in the rule of law? Do we think it's okay to have a convicted felon as president of the United States? These are very different questions that have been.
Yeah, I think it's important, though, right? I mean, we are just about out of time, though, but to remember that basically, according to polls, exactly as many people support Harris as support Trump. So we've got half of the country, half of our viewers who are listening to us right now, who that is who they're casting their vote for.
Of course. And by the way, I think anybody who says anything critical about Trump supporters, I've got a big problem with that. Like, nobody should ever disrespect voters. But they do need to understand what the stakes are in this election, and it's not a normal situation after January 6th.
ハリス・バイデン、クソ政権が続くことの方が
問題
と思う。ダメですよ、こいつらの話聞いてるのは。FOX、まだ宣伝なんですね。戻ってきて。NBC とかよく存在してるなって、よくみんなこんな番組見てるなと思いますよね。ないな、他には。しょうがない。CNN 見ますが、見たくない。一番嫌ですよね、CNN。
Hey, Savannah, good morning to you. We're talking about the stakes of this election there. This is Dubai Humanitarian in the UAE. It is the biggest aid facility in the world, and it's symbolic of one of the escalating global challenges that the next president, whoever it is, will face. This warehouse is run by the UN. You can see US aid is here. I'm told back in 2017, this whole facility housed around $43 million of aid. Since then, of course, the Trump administration, the Biden administration, here last month, they'd risen to $200 million of aid. This morning, America is voting amid multiple international conflicts and crises, with the potential to send shockwaves around the globe. Former President Trump has vowed to end conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East.
I will restore peace in the world.
ちょっとこの時間帯、ライブはまだまだね、始まって、投票日当日、だから日本でいうと日曜日の朝9時とかでしょ、投票日の。まあ、ろくな放送はないですよね。あまり意味のない時間潰し、のしかできないんで、ちょっとじゃあ、この間は
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 9:53 on the East Coast and 6:53 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslin. I'm here for the next couple hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news. And no question, it's election day. So that is our focus today. Any sort of events that get underway here, press conferences, things of that nature, we will make sure to bring those to you live, raw, and unfiltered. We've been showing you this image over the last hour or so as the stage has been set for Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger there in Georgia to provide an election update. Most of his updates daily here have been around 10 a.m. Eastern Time, so it is likely this will begin shortly. Again, we'll bring it to you live as soon as it does get underway. We also expect officials in Virginia will hold a briefing around the same time. You can watch that here. But around 11 a.m. Eastern Time or so, we should be waiting to hear from officials there in North Carolina and others.
ちょっとじゃあ、X に帰ってみましょう。朝9時何か出てますかね。ドナルド、トランプ3時間前に起きてるかっていう感じですよね。トランプこの時間に。ドナルド・ジェイ・トランプ、これ一緒に帰ってきたんですよ。リアル・ドナルド・トランプとドンは。飛行機乗ってフロリダに帰ってきてまして、ミシガンから。マーゴ・マーティン。これがその時の帰りの飛行機、です。すごいですよね。J ローについて話したんですか？イーロン・マスク。ちょっと聞いてみましょうか、2分の。
I bet there's some memories in that house. I'm sure if you go to Diddy's house, it probably feels real weird. Probably feels weird walking around that house. Probably like, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
I bet there's some memories in that house. You know?
Sounds rough, man.
Well, it's just amazing how many people on the Diddy party list that are supporting Kamala. Too.
Yeah, seriously, it's like insane.
Publicly, openly, like all in.
Yes. It's like J-Lo was like his ex-girlfriend, and it's like now deciding she's like warning people against Trump. I'm like, well, wait a second. So how many people did she warn against Diddy?
Right.
Oh, 0. Okay. Right. Well, maybe we shouldn't trust her opinion.
Did you see the Babylon Bees take on it? Did you see the Babylon Bees?
Babylon Bees awesome, but
oh my God, they're so on fire because the left can't say anything. Well, the Onion has been crippled.
Well, the problem is that like the
find that post.
The woke ideology makes like humor illegal.
Yes.
So when like there's so many humor no-fly zones,
right?
You can't make fun of anything.
Yeah. Babylon Bee had a thing about Kamala Harris. Diddy's ex-girlfriend urges Americans to trust her judgment. Yeah. By the way, you get to see how bad an actress she is too. That speech was terrible.
Like if she's gonna be warning people, why did she never warn anyone about Diddy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so strange to watch play out. It seems like the Diddy thing was like an Epstein-type compromise deal, where whether he was doing it himself. Conceivably, people want to think that he's attached to some intelligence agency or something like that. I think he's a gangster who made $1 billion and knew how to control people by compromising them. That's what I think. Whether or not he had help, I don't know. Whether or not he shared some of that information with people so they knew they had compromising stuff on people, I don't know. But clearly he was doing it for his own jollies too. There was something sick about it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that people in the music and entertainment industry had to know that Diddy was like abusing, kids basically. And yet they still fed him kids. And like, where's the accountability?
There had to be rumors. There had to be. They
had to know.
Yeah.
They had to know.
Cat Williams is talking about it on
exactly.
Yeah, on that podcast.
But like who's feeding him the kids?
Right.
そうですね。ディディはもう子供を虐待しますからね。それをみんな認識して知っておくべきです。ベース。まあいいですか、この話は。ベニーって、起きてますかね。朝9時寝てますね、ベニー。まだ。起きてたらライブやってると思います。起きてますね、50分前。イーロン・マスクの、 お母さんが来るみたいです。11時 AM から。今何時ですか？ちょっと待ってくださいね。今は、ニューヨーク10時。あと1時間して、ベニーのライブ始まりますよ。11時からイーロン・マスクのお母さん。ライブゲストで入ってくると。すごいですね。もうよくもうみんな、起きてますよね。朝早くから10時。はい。ちょっと待ってくださいね。なんか新しい、今朝一番のなんかニュースないですかね。ドナルド・J. トランプも起きてますよ。21分前に。投稿してます。これ、いつ寝てるんですか？飛行機の真ん中でちょっとは寝たんでしょうか。すごすぎるんだよ。うん。Radical Communist Democrat want you to pack up and go home. Tremendous victory and make America great again ですよ。Tremendous huge とかね。Tremendous victory ということで、もう DJT、我らが DJT 起きてます。未記録なんて言ったんですか？聞いてますか？
Take a wild guess.
Was it because of something he said about President Trump?
Yeah.
What did you say about him?
Just the truth.
Which is what?
Read my mind. That, but I'm not going to go into it because I don't need another visit from the Secret Service.
When did you have one before?
Oh, about 6 months ago.
Why?
Take a wild guess.
Was it because of something he said about President Trump?
Yeah.
What did you say about him?
Just the truth.
Which is what?
Read my mind. That, but I'm not going to go.
ということで、はい、ベに早速なんか言ってます。
That I think will shock the world, something that hasn't been captured in the polls because it cannot be measured scientifically or algorithmically. It can't be measured by the data available out there, something that could be catastrophic for Democrats. While I was voting, I had 2 women in front of me and 2 women behind me. They were single, they were college-aged, or young professionals. They are exactly the demographic that should have been captured by Kamala Harris. They are the only demographic that presumably would show up for Kamala Harris on election day. Now, I struck up a conversation with them, and in the course of that conversation, they asked me who I was voting for. And I said, I'm going to vote for safer country, lower gas prices, cheaper groceries, lower taxes, for a better future for my kids. America first. And they were all like, America first. I was like, so say what now? Every single one of them, all 4 of the young, single, college-aged women were voting for Trump. Inside of Tampa, which is a metropolitan, suburbanite, like blue area. Now, this is remarkable to me because this is the only demographic that could possibly push Kamala Harris over the edge. Urban vote is down catastrophically. Minority vote for Kamala Harris, down catastrophically. There are no good data indicators for Kamala Harris. The only thing keeping them alive right now would be suburban white woman vote, right? And yet, the ones that I spoke with were like, secretly we're voting for Trump. And that like clicked for me. I was like, wait a second. There are all these ads out about how women can secretly vote for Kamala, right? You don't have to do what your husband tells you to do. You don't have to do what your boyfriend tells you to do, right? You secretly sneak in there and vote for Kamala.
これがね、隠れトランプなんですよ。
Is that women are voting against the true social pressure for women, which is other women, and are saying this nation is in shambles. I don't feel safe. Everything is unaffordable, and I can't get a start on life. And by the way, like men can't either, and that's going to be very bad for me down the road. I think that it's the opposite. I think women are going to secretly vote for Trump. The young, suburbanite, single college-age woman that was supposed to show up for Kamala is actually showing up for Trump. And I don't think it can be measured by any poll. And that's why I think we're going to win. And that's why I think we may win in a landslide. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my experience voting. What was your experience voting? Stay in line. We can win. We will win.
In landslide.
This is the moment we put America first.
でしょ。聞きました聞きました彼の話。まあ、一言言うと、ハリスね、もうさっき言った黒人男性とか、ラティーノボートをどんどん失っていると、歴史的にね。唯一の拠り所は若い、カレッジ、ディグリーのあるね、若いサバーバンの女性、リベラルの女性、ここで彼4人に聞いたら、みんな、アメリカファーストのイシュー、そりゃそうですよね。ガスの問題、経済の問題、それで、密かにトランプに、投票すると言ってます。ハリスの一番の拠り所の支持母体のところがね、ハリスを裏切って。で、この女性たちは、表だって言えないんですよ。私トランプだと。社会の中で友達の面もあります。だから、こうやってね、隠れトランプってできてくるんですよ。いろんなところで。これまでもそうでした。で、隠れトランプ票っていうのは、ポールでは、